Why do you keep doing that? Shut up.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Assalamualaikum, Nihal.
Hey, salam.
Give it a couple minutes, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we'll probably give it like 3-4 more minutes, inshallah.
Okay, thanks. Assalamualaikum, Nihal. I think we should start.
Walaikum salam. Okay.
Walaikum salam.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله النبي الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على طاعتك يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله آمين يا رب العالمين. So inshallah, let's get into it. We have, alhamdulillah, we're just about done with half of the shikwa. And today we're going to be going over the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th stanzas, the bongs that are there. And they're going to be an interesting discussion because some of the points that are spoken about therein are different than what have been brought up in the previous stanzas as well. So I'll go ahead and inshallah I'll read it. महफिल कौन मकाम में सहर और शाम फिरे मैं तौहीद को लेकर सिफत जाम फिरे कोह में दश्त में कोह में दश्त में लेकर तेरा पैगाम फिरे और मालूम है तुझको कभी का और मालूम है तुझको को कभी नाकाम फिरे। दश्त तो दश्त है दरिया भी ना छोड़े हमने बहर जुल्मात में दौड़ा दे बहर जुल्मात में दौड़ा दे घोड़े हमने. So it's an interesting discussion because the main question that's being asked is that whose message are we striving toward, right? Whose message are we striving towards? And the truth is that there's a question that's being brought about. Whose question or whose message are we talking about? We're talking about Allah's message, right? Allah's is the main message that we're going to be speaking about here. Now, holistically speaking, what's he speaking about? He's saying mahfil kaun wa makan. So this is actually a ibara, it's a idiom referring to the entire world, right? The entire world, right? Mahfil kaun wa makan mein sahar wa sham phire. We literally went around the entire world looking and spreading your word, right? And not only that, Sahar wa Sham. We did it at what time? We did it day and night. Day and night we went around the entire world, right? Going and spreading your message. And then afterwards, Main Tawheed ko lekar. Main here, it's actually Main Tawheed ko lekar. Main Tawheed is a reference to the pleasure of God's oneness, right? Main Tawheed. Main refers to the pleasure, and Tawheed is God's oneness, the pleasure of God's oneness, right? You have that. Ko lekar sifat jam phire. I literally was going around with a goblet, right? Sifat jam refers to a goblet. It's the cup that's used to pour alcohol into, and obviously he's using it as a means of what? People getting drunk off of God's pleasure, right? And it's an often, even though as Muslims we don't drink alcohol, he's using this as an idiom to show that sometimes people will become so comfortable and so pleasured by the fact that they are Muslims, the fact that they are have Islam in their lives, but at the same time, he's saying that at this point, building the case that we've literally gone around everywhere understanding God's oneness, right? And we've been drunk off of this thing. Where did we go? Koh mein, dash mein lekar. Koh is a mountain. Koh is a mountain. Koh mein, dasht mein lekar. Dasht is a jungle or a forest, right? Dasht mein lekar tera paigam phire. Your message, your paigam, right? Your message, we took it and we brought it everywhere. We brought it to the mountains. We brought it to the jungles. We brought it to every single one of these places, right? We brought it to every single one of these places, and people did what? People continued to do it. People continued to bring it about. People continued to go through, and specifically the Muslims, they were going about bringing Allah's message everywhere. Aur maloom hai tujhko, and you know, kabhi naakaam phire. We weren't unsuccessful, right? We weren't unsuccessful. We went and we brought your message and we were not unsuccessful. And you know that that never happened. And you know that with your knowledge, right? You know that we were never unsuccessful. Every single place that we entered, we knew that we were going to be successful. So that was a point that is mentioned here. Now, going on, dasht to dasht hai, right? Forests are forests at the end of the day. Darya bhi na chhode humne. We didn't even leave off oceans. So we went into the oceans, we went into the forests, we went onto all these different places. Dasht to dasht hai. Darya bhi na chhode humne. So forests at the end of the day are forests, right? It's one thing to say, like, if you live in a forest, you understand the forest. If you live in the city, you understand the city. If you live in the countryside, you understand the countryside. So yeah, jungles are there, forests are there, but we actually took it a step further, right? Darya bhi na chhode humne. We didn't even leave off the ocean. We didn't leave off the sea. We didn't leave off the rivers. So we went into those places that may have been uncomfortable for us. We went into those places that may have been difficult for us. Bahr zulumat mein dauda diye ghode humne. Right? Bahr zulumat refers to the darkness of the sea, right? The darkness of the seas, right? right? Even in the darkness of the sea, we ran our horses. We went out there. We got involved. We went out of our way to do what? We went out of our way to fight in your path. And I want you to look at something holistically here. The one thing Allama Iqbal is doing is that he's setting a stage, right? He's setting a stage. We went into where? The entire world. We went everywhere. And not only that, we didn't do it for ourselves. We were quite literally ready to, when he's describing this state of intoxication, to give your life for Allah, to give your life for everyone that's there. So we're ready to give our life for you. And now he's going on and saying what? Not only that, we were on this high, with your love and with your sincerity, that we went into the mountains, we went into the forests. We took that message of yours, right? That message of La ilaha illallah. We took it and we ran with it everywhere. And you also know, and you knew, what was it? That we went to these places and we were unsuccessful. So he's setting up a stage. He's actually building a premise. This is the premise of the argument that is going to come now in the next few lines. So this premise is that we took your message. We were completely endowed by it. We were completely taken by it. And we did our best to do what? To go towards people. और मालूम है तुझको कि हम नाकाम, मालूम है तुझको कभी नाकाम फिरे, right? We were never unsuccessful and we did it well. And then he says it, what? Forests are forests, jungles are jungles. Dasht to dasht hai, darya bhi na chhode humne. We went towards the oceans. We went and crossed the sea in boats. We went towards there. And we literally went in and we raced our horses through those oceans of darkness. They conquered the darkness of ignorance by delivering the message of God's oneness, right? He's not mentioning dhulumat for no reason, because actually in the Quran, it's really interesting. Allah will often mention darkness in retrospect to light, right? He's always going to pair them together, right? He is the one that brought the light and made the darkness go away, or the darkness is dhulumatun fawqaha ba'd, that there are darkness upon darknesses. And here too, when Allah speaks about in the Quran the idea of darkness, he's saying that there was very little light. So they're saying that they went into the darkness, so that they knew that they had to bring people out of it. They knew that they had to do something to go out of their way to bring people together. So now you see this come together, right? You see this all begin to form a premise that Iqbal is going to mention in the next few verses. And then he goes on. What does he say? He says, Safai dahar se batil ko mitaya humne, right? And then noe insan ko gulami se chhodaya humne, tere kaabe ko jabinon se basaya humne, tere Quran ko सीने से लगाया हमने, फिर भी हमसे ये गिला है कि वफादार नहीं, हम वफादार नहीं तो भी तू दिलदार नहीं, right? फिर भी हमसे ये गिला है कि वफादार नहीं, हम वफादार नहीं तू भी तो दिलदार नहीं, right? If we're not loyal, then you don't have a heart. So now what do we begin to see here? It's another idiom that's brought up. All right, Safai dahar. It's actually supposed to be written like this. I'm not sure why it's not. Safai dahar, which refers to the face of the world. So from the face of the earth, batil ko mitaya humne. Batil is what? Falsehood. Batil is falsehood. Ko mitaya humne. We erased it. We completely erased it. No insan ko gulami se chhodaya humne. No insan refers to what? The children of Adam, actually. Mankind. So we took people away, right? The children of Adam is in reference to mankind. It's in reference to mankind. And mankind does what? Mankind, no insan ko gulami se chhodaya humne. We took people away, right? We removed them. That rescued people from gulami. from slavery. Right? Remove people from slavery, from a form of bondage, which was not with God, which was not with worshiping Allah. तेरे काबे को जबीनों से बसाया हमने. Right? तेरे काबे को, supposed to be तेरे काबे को. Jabino, your foreheads. And Kaaba, right? The Kaaba. Se basaya humne. What did we do? We caused our foreheads to be populated, or to be to include people, right? We caused people to go into the Kaaba and put their foreheads on their ground. That's also being brought up. तेरे काबे को जबीरों से बसाया हमने, तेरी कुरान को सीनों से लगाया हमने. So he's also talking about the fact that we held onto your Quran, right? Quran ko सीने से लगाना. This Sina is your chest, right? So they're talking about what? We took the Quran onto our chests. We held the Quran onto our chests. And I want you to imagine that, right? I want you to, I want you to basically see that. Sajid, are you raising your hand? I think I see your hand raised. Okay, it's fine. So
yeah, it was a mistake. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So here it's saying that we've done all of these things. So in this area, right, the question that's brought up, that were we not loyal? Right? Were we not loyal, number one? And then number two, didn't we do what we were supposed to? Keeping those two questions in mind. Or didn't we do what we were supposed to? So now what do we see? We see that at this point, that no इंसान को गुलामी से छुड़ाया हमने, तेरे काबे को जबीनों से बसाया हमने, तेरे कुरान को सीनों से लगाया हमने. He's saying that when it came to the entirety of the world, we went in, and what did we do? We went in, we did what we had to do, right? We removed falsehood, we erased it, we freed people, right? We freed people from the clutches of not worshiping God, from being away from Islam. We went in and we put our foreheads towards the Kaaba, right? Because there was a point mentioned before, humne apne aap ko ruh qibla kiya, right? That we literally turned ourselves towards the Kaaba. We turned ourselves towards Allah. We turned ourselves towards the Creator. And not only that, so we did we fought, right? We worshipped, or sorry, we helped others, right? We fought, we helped others, we worshipped, and we had principles, right? We had these four things, right? We fought, we helped others, we worshipped, and we had principles. Those are the four things. How did we fight? Batil ko mitaya, right? We fought because batil ko mitaya. How did we help others? Unko no insan ko gulami se chhudaya. We got people out of bondage, right? How did we worship? Jabino se tere Kaaba ko jabino se basaya. We literally inhabited the Kaaba with our foreheads by worshiping you. How did we have principles? Tere Quran ko sino se lagaya. We took the Quran and made it close to us, brought it to our hearts, right? We did all of that. And then what do we see? फिर भी हमसे ये गिला है कि वफादार नहीं. Even then, फिर भी, even then, right? Even then, हमसे ये गिला है. Even then the complaint is against us, right? There's a complaint with us that we did all of that. हमसे ये गिला है कि वफादार नहीं, right? You're not loyal, right? You don't show loyalty. Even then, is that we are not loyal, we're not faithful, right? Right? Disloyalty, right? Or unfaithfulness. Hum wafadar nahi, right? So he's saying, okay, if we're not faithful, hum wafadar nahi, then what? Tu bhi to dildar nahi, right? Tu bhi to dildar nahi. So if we're not going to be faithful, tu bhi to dildar nahi. And this is where it starts to get a little hot, right? So he's saying that if we're not faithful, if we are not faithful, hum wafadar nahi, if we're not faithful, then guess what? Tu bhi dildar nahi. Then you are not someone that has a heart. Tu bhi dildar nahi. You are heartless. And this is where it's going to start to kind of get a little interesting as we move on. So you see all of this, a track record is being built up here. The case is being built up. And we said that from before too, right? That they did something. We went around the entire world. We were drunk off the goblet of Tawheed. And then we went into the forest. We went into the mountains. We went into the ocean. We were never unsuccessful. It didn't matter whether forests were there. We went into the most difficult places, which were the oceans. We went into the darkness of this, over the darkness of the sea, and we went and we ran our horses and we tired ourselves. And then on top of that, we fought for your sake. We removed falsehood. We helped others. We removed people from slavery. We worshiped you. We held on to our principles and to the Quran. And even then, you're saying that we are disloyal. Even then, you are saying that we are unfaithful. Hum wafadar nahi. If we are unfaithful, if we don't have faith, tu bhi to dildar nahi, then you are heartless, is what he's mentioning, right? He's saying that you are heartless at the end, right? And that's, now we're going to see the case build up. We're going to see the case build up. I know I read the other ones, but is there anyone that would like to read? I know we have a handful of people here, but is anyone that would like to read, inshallah? Going once, going twice. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and inshallah read it. So he says, उम्मतें और भी हैं, इनमें गुनाहगार भी हैं, इजज वाले भी हैं, मस्त मई पिंदार भी हैं, इजज वाले भी हैं, मस्त मई पिंदार भी हैं, इनमें काहिल भी हैं, गाफिल भी हैं, होशियार भी हैं, सैकड़ों हैं तेरे नाम से बेजार भी हैं, रहमतें हैं तेरी अगियार के काशानों में और आकाशानों पर, रहमतें हैं तेरे अगियार के काशानों पर, बर्क गिरती है तो बेचार मुसलमानों पर. And now he's going to begin to build. So I want you to keep this in mind. In stanza 14 or 13 to 14, there's going to be a change of voice you're going to see, right? Or a change of tone, right? And you're going to see Iqbal become more directed, because now we're going to go off of what? We're going to go off of what we had said over here, that hum wafadar nahi, tu bhi to dildar nahi, right? Agar hum wafadar nahi hai, to tum bhi dildar nahi ho. That if we are heartless, then you are what? What are you? Right? What are you at the end of the day? It's a different story. And then we go on and it says what? Ummatein aur bhi hain. There are other nations, right? There are many other nations that we can talk about. There are other nations. Inme gunahgar bhi hain. Supposed to be gunahgar. So there are other people that are sinful. Gunahgar means to be sinful, and I'm going to show you these. So there are these other nations in which people are sinful. Ijaz wale hain, right? Ijaz is in reference to those people that are here on earth, right? On earth at the end. Excuse me. Right? On earth or down to earth. Bhi hain. Maste mein pindar bhi hain. There are those who are basically masteme, they're intoxicated. Pindar actually is in reference to pride. So intoxicated by pride. Intoxicated by pride. इनमें काहिल भी हैं, गाफिल भी हैं, होशियार भी हैं. इनमें काहिल हैं, you have the lazy people. You have those people who are ghafil, they're basically heedless. Hoshiyar bhi hain, you have those that are aware and smart. So you have good people as well. सैकड़ों हैं कि तेरे नाम से बेजार भी हैं. There are those people who are dissatisfied, right, by taking your name. They are dissatisfied by taking your name. And why are they dissatisfied? Well, that's a different story. But as we go on, we're going to show what? He's here talking about nations, right? And the nations at that time, who is he talking about? He's talking about there are other people that are very much so alive, right? He's talking about Christians. He's talking about Jews. He's talking about people who had prophets sent to them, right? All these people exist already. We are the Muslims. We were sent the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right? They're the Muslims as well. You have all these different nations that may exist, right? You have all these different people. Yet, there are the sinful amongst them. There are the down-to-earth amongst them. There are those that are intoxicated by their own pleasure and pride, right? You have those people as well. You have the sinful people as well, right? You have lazy people as well. You have heedless people as well. But then you also have smart people. You may have those, but guess what? At the end, a lot of them are dissatisfied with taking your name. And then he goes on. रहमतें हैं तेरी अग़यार के काशानों पर. Right? So mercy exists for others, right? Basically, mercy exists for the houses of others. Mercy exists for the houses of others. रहमतें हैं तेरी अग़यार के काशानों पर. Right? Kashan is in reference to a house. Right? Rahmat is what? Mercy. Right? Teri aghyar. Aghyar refers to others. And he's also talking about something else. You know, often this goes to something in human psychology that he's bringing up. We end up being what? We end up basically being in a situation where we will be good with others, we'll be good with outsiders, but very seldom are people going to do what? Are people going to bring themselves into a place where they are understanding how to be with others who are not of their own, right? And when we are with people that are our own, our children or our spouse or our friends, we sometimes don't treat them the best way or have the most mercy on them, right? We end up not treating them in the best way. But the truth is that when we learn to treat others in a better way that are close to us, then we're doing our part in being good people. But here, Allah is saying what? Or rather, I'm sorry, Iqbal is saying what in regards to God? Rahmatein hain tere aghyar ke kashanon par. So you have mercy for what? All these people who may not worship you. Barq gidti hai to bechare musalmanon par. But when lightning strikes, right? Lightning, barq is lightning. Right? Jab barq gidti hai to bechare musalmanon par. So it drops on the poor Muslims, right? It drops on the poor Muslims. That's who it was dropping on. जब बर्क़ गिरती है तो बेचार मुसलमानों पर. And that's the main point that he's going to be bringing up over here. The main point is that if this is happening to the Muslims, if the Muslims are the ones getting it, why is it? Because there are other people, right? इनमें गुनाहगार भी हैं, अजज़ वाले भी हैं, मस्ते में पिंदार भी हैं. You have all these different people. काहिल भी हैं, गाफिल भी हैं, हशियार भी हैं. So you do have people that are aware. मगर सबसे जो बड़ी बात है तुमसे बेजार हैं. That the biggest issue that comes up are that people are dissatisfied with you. Why are they dissatisfied with you? Because it seems you have mercy for other people. You have mercy for other people's houses. But when the lightning hits, we've done all the work, and yet we're the ones that are getting stricken by the lightning. We are the ones that are getting colonized. We are the ones that are getting killed. We are the ones that are having our intellectual tradition thrown out of the room. So all these different things that it comes down to, that's what ends up happening. Right? All these different things that exist, then in this situation, what ends up happening is that for some reason, you're not giving us the treatment that we think that we deserve. So now, bringing it all together, you have these other people, you have these sinners, because what is it? As a sinner, it's like, oh, okay, if you sin, then bad things will happen to you, right? That's what people are told. That's what we're told. But then there are those of us who are on earth that are down to earth. There are those who are intoxicated by pride, right? And he actually talks about this very interestingly, right? Because he's using the term of intoxication here, and then he did the same exact thing up here, right? He did the same exact thing to show what there are those people, or actually this one over here, that there are those people who are quite literally drunk off of the pleasure of God's oneness, right? मैं तौहीद को लेकर सिफत जाम फिरे, right? The pleasure of God's oneness. We literally had its goblet in our hands and we were going everywhere with that goblet. So he's going back and saying, well, in this situation, there are those people that were intoxicated by pride, but we're intoxicated by God's oneness. So how does all of this come together? So now the change of tone is occurring, number one. Number two, the Muslims are making their case. Iqbal is making his case saying what? This is actually very important over here, right? Safai dahr se batil ko mitaya humne. That from the face of this world, we should be given a sense of understanding. We should be on top, right? We should be honored. We fought for you. We helped others. No insan ko ghulami se choraya humne. We got people out of this bondage that was overtaking them. And then on top of that, what tere Kaabe ko jabeenon se basaya humne. We worshipped you. We brought our head down to you, right? Tere Quran ko seenon se lagaya humne. And we were steadfast on these principles towards you. And then even then, phir bhi humse ye gila hai ke wafadar nahi. You're not loyal, they're being told. Hum wafadar nahi, tu bhi to dildar nahi. And if we're not faithful, then you are heartless. And this is where a lot of this is going to revolve around. The pain is showing now. The pain of what this shikwa was, the understatement of he built all this up to this point, right? The pain that existed there, the difficulty that was there. So all of that is going to be seen moving forward, wherein we will do what? We will begin to understand what Iqbal was mentioning, what he will use to build this case, what he will say, right? And the next verses we're going to go over next week, inshallah, but he'll go over ideas of what? But sanam khanon mein kehte hain Musalman gayi, right? That idols are saying in their temples and in areas of idol worship that the Muslims are gone. And this is going to be a very big, interesting point that is going to be brought up, because he's going to mention hai khushi unko ke Kaaba ke nigahban gaye, right? That the guardians of the Kaaba, the ones who used to take care of it, who used to protect the house, they're gone. Right. And this will actually really trigger some emotions in people. Like up until this point, he was doing a lot of buildup. He's made the case, and now he's going to go over what the emotional aspects of it. And it actually does get a little emotional at this point, where we'll inshallah get into it. So inshallah, I wanted to kind of open it up for discussion from there. I know there's actually a few people on Facebook that are watching. So, feel free to also, inshallah, join in from there. But if there's anyone that has anything to add, inshallah, we can take it, inshallah. Any thoughts, any concerns from anyone that has been watching? I know Iqbal Day also just passed, right? I know there was like a major event that had taken place commemorating Allama Iqbal and all these different spaces. But yeah. So any thoughts, any concerns? I know I see Dr. Saab's on today. I see a few new people. Sister Sophia, assalamu alaikum. Sarah, assalamu alaikum. Is there anything anyone would like to share or any comments? You're more than welcome to, inshallah, join in.
How did you say Dr. Abdul Rahman is on?
Not Dr. Abdul Rahman. Dr. I apologize, I'm forgetting his name. He comes on the iPhone.
Okay.
Sahiba, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Alhamdulillah. Yeah.
That's good.
I'm sorry. I'm not. It's above my pay grade, so I'm going to defer to maybe Zahid Bey or Mughal Bhai if they're there.
Assalamu alaikum. No, you did a great job, mashallah. Everything it was perfect. I think the translation of dildar may not be heartless. Dildar is someone who, like, if you're doing, I think I'm trying to find a word for dildar. Dildar is like,
yeah, Zahid,
how do you pay back? Like,
yeah,
if you do a favor to someone, how do you pay back to that person?
Yeah.
So, like, we are doing all these things to you, for you, and you're not paying us back the way we are working for you.
yeah. The other, word would be Zahid, a friend. So if we are disloyal or not loyal, then you are also not a friend.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
A softer word. So,
Yeah.
Disloyal, you think, or do you think, or
no, I think friend would be a good, that you are also
Yeah,
not a
friend would be a good translation for dildar.
yeah? Would a good word for dildar in Urdu also be hamdard?
Hamdard is a little different meaning. Again, with language, you obviously have. So yeah, it can be. I mean, there, Hamdard means who feels your pain. Kind of.
उर्दू में दिलदार का कोई दूसरे अल्फाज इस्तेमाल होते हैं? Are there any different other words in Urdu?
Yeah, so dildar is a friend as well as somebody you love, kind of. So a middle kind of.
You can count on, like a person you can count on.
जैसे यार.
Yar, like for example, yar.
Yeah.
So you basically trust someone that can pay you back at the time of need. So, for example, I think the word what he's trying to say is that we have been doing so much for you, but what are we getting in return?
Yeah.
So you're not being a friend that would return the favor.
Yeah.
And Zahid, not only that, but not that, but you're also being labeled as wafadar nahi. It's
Right.
not only enough that you have not done all that you're supposed to do, but in spite of that, you're not, considered a wafadar after all that. So the important thing is to sort of, just stay with what we've done so far, is to see how beautifully this whole thing is going, from starting with when he said that, मैं भी बाग में फूल नहीं हूँ जो महसूस नहीं कर सकता, मुझे तूने अल्लाह जुबान दी है जो कह सकती है, और मेरे में फीलिंग्स हैं, तो उस पे करते करते फिर आहिस्ता आहिस्ता अपनी वो सारी जो हिस्ट्री है वो बयान करते हुए यहाँ तक पहुंचे हैं.
Yeah, because he's making, as brother is basically explaining, he's making up the case. He has come to this level of making up the case for all the things that we are doing as Muslims, whereas the other nations are not doing any of that. And even then, we are the ones who are being tested, or हमारे ऊपर जो है कहर पड़ रहा है, or lightning हो रही है, and all those words that he's using. So I think that's what. So मतलब you are also not wafadar or dildar towards us.
And I think that's where he's saying, right? Ummatein aur bhi hain, and he's specifically saying that there are other ummas with other prophets, right? But then at the end, right? At the end, what's happening? Barq girti hai to bechare musalmanon par, right? And he's still building that up.
Exactly. Right.
मतलब अगर मुसलमानों में अगर अच्छे लोग
loyalty नहीं है, so they are also not loyal either. Exactly.
उनमें भी ये सारे लोग ऐसे मौजूद हैं, लेकिन उनको mercy is towards them, and lightning is on us.
Yeah.
Nice. Alhamdulillah. Yeah. And that's the thing, it makes us wonder too, right? It's that obviously he's building this case from his own perspective, from his own end, talking about, you know, we've done our part. But I think this is where the transitionary moment has come, right? And I think it starts from here. And now the rest of Shikwa is going to kind of mirror this area now, where we're going to see his own words in this perspective as to how we're going to see that we've done our part. हमने जो करना था हमने तो किया है, पर जो उसका रिजल्ट होना चाहिए, जो उसका नतीजा होना चाहिए, like what it should be, वो सामने नहीं दिख रहा है. और इसकी क्या वजूहात हैं, क्यों ऐसे हुआ है? And I think that's what the next part it's going to go over. And as I actually had to stop myself from going into the next bong simply because of the fact that it's a very, very deeply, like you'll feel it, right? You'll feel it in the next few bongs.
Yeah. And then that's why at that time people called him that he's kafir and he's not, they labeled him as if he's not a Mormon or a Muslim.
Yeah.
But then when he wrote the Jawab-e-Shikwa, then he answered all these questions that are being raised. And then everyone was satisfied that his thought is so deep that he can actually answer the question why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not favoring us and why are we being persecuted everywhere.
Yeah, and I actually wonder too, because a lot of people don't understand, and we went over this on the first day, that the Jawab-e-Shikwa, which was the response, obviously, was not written until several years later, like 2 to 3 years later it was written. Does anyone know in regards to how people had perceived Iqbal for those 2 to 3 years before Jawab-e-Shikwa was written?
There were a lot of questions. There were a lot of, especially the religious community came after him and labeled him all the things that Dr. Baig just said. So it was a very difficult time for him.
Yeah, and not only that, I can imagine, because it's just interesting, because when you see his work, right? And I know when I was in madrasa, like people will speak very highly of him, but you didn't see people speaking highly of him in those like very hardcore religious circles until after Jawab-e-Shikwa.
Exactly. No, at that time when he wrote the Shikwa, people doubted. They doubted that he's even a Muslim because the way he questioned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even though, as Dr. Abdul Rahman mentioned in last session or the session before last, that he in the beginning said that let me subtly question your reasoning for what you are doing to the Muslims. He's very subtle in complaining to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's not saying that this is my complaint. He just, the words that he used in the beginning is very subtle complaint. And that's even in the word shikwa. Shikwa is not a formal complaint. It's like a very subtle complaint, and with all the etiquette and all the respect towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But even then, people called him a kafir, and like the people were against him. But I didn't know that there was like a 3-year gap between this and the Jawab-e-Shikwa. But I wouldn't I can't even imagine what he went through during those 3 years.
Yeah, and as Dr. Abdurrahman was even saying, that people, when they read Iqbal, he's read, like you can, like if you come into wanting to read Iqbal with your own agenda and your own preconceived notions, it's actually very easy to find whatever you're looking for in all of his literature, but you have to holistically read him to understand him. And it's like any form of literature, right? You find people who are, you know, who may want to, let's say, oh, hadith doesn't exist. Oh, look, Iqbal kind of directs this. And or someone says that, oh yeah, look, he was very fond of ulama. Oh, look, Iqbal says this. Or he was very fond of a spiritual tradition. Oh, look, Iqbal said this about Rumi. Or he was not fond of this group or not fond of that group. It's actually very interesting to see how people take him and use him for whatever, you know, maqsad jo bhi unka hai, whatever purpose they have for him.
Yeah.
It's something that brings it up, alhamdulillah.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Does anyone have anything else to add before we close out, inshallah?
I would love to add something. Walaikum salam. By the way, I was on mute when you gave me salam.
Okay.
I thank you so much for this discussion, and I just wanted to, it always is good to remind ourselves that some of the most beloved to Allah suffered greatly,
Yeah.
like the Jobs and all the different prophets and the companions went through very hard times. We sometimes think that maybe there's something that we're doing wrong, and we're trying to do everything right, but yet we're suffering. So it's a good reminder that we're in good company.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and I think that's what people end up forgetting. It's that, to go through difficulty is a part of the package of getting your message out there. I think that's
Yes. Yes, Jazakallah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, inshallah, I will, inshallah, we can end off on here, and the next week we'll pick up on the Bang 15, 16, 17, see where things go, inshallah. جزاك الله خير سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.